Hello everyone. How are you? I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Welcome to my channel Days of Our Lives 24 and new video your favorite TV drama Days of Our Lives. Subscribe to my channel for more new episodes of Days of Our Lives and new news. It has been an emotional time for longtime fans of Days of Our Lives and beloved veteran Susan Seaforth Hayes, Julie Williams. On screen, the iconic Horton home was burned to the ground in what appears to be a storyline-dictated decision that shocked many. In real life, Susan is mourning the loss of her husband and Daly's enduring favorite, Bill Hayes, Doug Williams, who passed away at 98 in January. Over the weekend, during the 2024 SAG Awards in memoriam tribute, Hayes was remembered along with other motion pictures and television stars whom we lost over the past year. Since the Peacock streaming soap opera tapes months ahead of air, the Horton home fire and its aftermath are currently playing out in all new episodes, with more on this story featuring Susan to come. Bill Hayes also appeared in several of these episodes, making it all the more touching and heartfelt. When Julie came back to the Horton home to see what remained of it after the fire, Days of Our Lives fans were treated to a heart-tugging episode that streamed last Wednesday, February 21st. In it, newly taped scenes of a young Tom, Zach Chiz, and Alice, Sydney Catherine Smith, Horton telling the story of how they came to live in the house to raise their children, juxtaposed with Julie and Doug, and members of their family and friends, surveying what's left of the beloved house, brought many a tear. Michael Fairman TV talked with Susan Seaforth Hayes for this very candid and heartfelt conversation to get her feelings on the Horton house fire, and being given the opportunity to have a storyline at this point in her storied career. In addition, Susan provides some insight on what it was like for her ailing late husband to tape scenes at Dayway's shortly before his death, what the series plans to do about writing off the character of Doug while honoring the legacy of Bill Hayes, and how she knew she had the greatest love affair that anyone could hope for in their lifetime, which in turn has inspired all of us. I was shocked when they decided to burn down the Horton house. Were you at first devastated? And did you know that there would be a big story surrounding it? Susan, I did not know how big a story was with it. I knew that many years ago, another regime had planned on trashing the set and getting rid of the set because nobody cared about the Hortons anymore. It was stopped by one person, and I was eternally grateful for that. This time I thought, oh my goodness, I guess I'll be meeting people for a cup of coffee at the Horton Square. No home, no roots, no reason to be called in, and thinking that's the end of Julie. That's the end of Doug and Julie. Then when they began to structure a story around it, I think all of this came up during the writer's strike. So of course, I was curious to see how this was going to turn out. I enjoyed the aftermath because in the aftermath, and a little bit before the fire, if you saw the show, I get to talk a bit about the history of the household and the people in it. In the special episode that aired last Wednesday, Julie gave Leo, Greg Reichardt, the family tree history of the Hortons for his story in the Spectator. Susan, I've had a couple of good long soliloquies about the past. I'm fated to be the character that does that because I'm the one still standing. I must say, I do enjoy doing them. Emotionally, all I have to do is rerun some of the actors and my own family in my mind, and the emotion starts to come. You know, the emotion starts to flow. Julie talks to Maggie, Suzanne Rogers, immediately after the fire. She is upset that the Horton family Christmas ornaments are gone. Fans were not happy that they could possibly have burned up. Thank God. There was a happy ending when they were located and unscathed, or there would have been hell to pay. Susan, I knew that they were in the prop room and that they still existed, but how much they were going to put a story around their loss, I did not know. We don't get to ponder the plot. We just get to show up and start doing it. I think on this particular matter, something as important as a structure of the original set of the show, there's been quite a bit of interest, so I can appreciate that. I was thinking, did they decide to burn the house down because they were finally retiring the old Horton home set? What was the purpose of it? Susan, they've done everything to make quicker set changes, which is remarkable and very efficient right now. The set designer said, I'll be interested in your input, which was nice. The one thing that I loved that had been done didn't work. You couldn't shoot into it. It was a federal mirror over the mantel. I loved it. The size was perfect. I was just delighted. And then we tried to shoot it, and because of the roundness of the mirror, you got a perfect view of camera 1 and camera 3. So it came down. This is Julie's project to renovate the home. She's determined to bring back all the memories and redo it. Susan. Absolutely, which is another nice note to play for my character. She's determined to make the house something that her grandparents would recognize and still feel comfortable in. What did you think of the episode that just aired where the show incorporated flashbacks of a young Tom and Alice Horton? Susan. Well, I set it up. They had their own lovely scenes. I read them, and I'm sure the audience was charmed. What do you remember when you first came to Dayways and you were in that house, in that set? Susan. What did I notice about the set? I noticed that it was a strange shade of green. Laughs. It was explained to me that that dull color meant that your face would pop on color TV. I understood that. I loved the little window up the staircase. I've always loved that. And at one time, there was a model of the house that sat on the set on its own little pedestal, a little playhouse of the exterior of the house. Whenever the house was on, and remember this is when we were a half hour and practically live, but not live, because there was no editing. There would also be the sound of a barking dog whenever we reached the Horton house neighborhood. We never saw the dog, but I'm sure his name was Spot, and I'm sure he belonged to someone. You shared so many scenes with Frances Reed, Alice, and MacDonald Carey, Tom, in the Horton living room set and up till they passed. Did they get along well with Bill? Looking back, how was your relationship with them? Susan. They loved him. Well, Mac and Billy had worked together before in theater. Mac was very kind to me at the beginning and helpful. Frances was as well. As Frances got older, she got a bit testy. When someone says, "You're not going to read the line like that, are you?" It catches your attention. Laughs. I got peeved at Frances from time to time, but her intent was always to make everything as good as it possibly could be. I saw her come back from her stroke. Learn to talk again. Learn to do it all again. Not do it easily, but to do it at all was wonderful. And the same with Mac. In his last shows, he was very frail, but we're actors. We liked being there. During the taping of the episodes surrounding the Horton house fire, Bill was mostly in them with you. How was Bill doing at the time you taped these scenes? Susan. He was okay. He was up for it. He had difficulty moving at that point, so they restricted his movement a lot. Bill always enjoyed coming to work a lot, and it was extremely difficult for him because he was blind and didn't move very well. And now, to do a scene with people who may or may not have rehearsed with you, who may or may not give you the exact cue, and when they are attempting to have you look each other in the eye, you can't see whose eyes they are. That was the hard part. The easy part was working with him, which was lovely and was a gift. It was a gift from Corday Productions that he was able to work within 3 weeks of his death, which I thought was super and extraordinary. That is amazing. Did Bill understand everything that was going on at the time of the tapings? Susan. Absolutely. He understood what was going on. He just couldn't see it or touch it. The timing couldn't have been easy for you with Bill's declining health, and that the show was going to burn down the Horton home where you shared so many scenes and memories. Susan. Well, it hasn't been my greatest stretch, but I knew that life would be like this. I've had 5 decades of an absolutely wonderful, blessed marriage, and a chance to work, and a chance to live in my own home and travel, all good. And now we're going to have the epilogue. And the epilogue is the hard part, seeing rapid change around you and losing the people that were the center of your life. I've just been very fortunate to have cultivated some wonderful friendships and to have a wonderful large family of Haseys. You do realize that you and Bill were the gold standard of what we all should be lucky enough to have in our lives. What an incredible, beautiful, passionate, loving marriage that the two of you had. You don't see marriages like that anymore. We were all just in awe of the two of you. To us, it was the greatest love affair. You got to have that which is so extraordinary. Susan. I know, and it was all Bill. I mean, any idiot could have been married to Bill Hayes and been deliriously happy. The guy was so perfect in every way that you really would have to pick something and blow it out of proportion to ever complain about any of his traits of character. He was just all good character, goodwill, and good humor. I just followed along and tried to live my life for him, with him, and follow his style, which I hope to carry on. I hope to be as good to people as he was to people, and not be selfish. I always remembered how the two of you would come to the studio with your suitcases, ready to work no matter what material, large or small, they gave you. You showed up. You just had such great work ethic, and you don't see that as much anymore. Susan. At the moment, it's hard to find it everywhere. I think it's probably generational. You cannot get too angry at people that are still holding up their phones in the one rehearsal that we have. I think it's more convenient to receive your work electronically, but somehow it doesn't seem quite as real. You don't have a script in your hand anymore unless you print one up yourself. Sometimes you haven't met the person you're working with. Well, that's not unusual, but no rehearsal at all. That's kind of marvelously new. Does Julie lean on anybody for emotional support as she tries to rebuild the Horton home? Who's there for her? Susan. As far as I can tell, nobody. I'm supposed to be the wise woman, Aunt Marlena. Deidre Hall is supposed to be the other wise woman. I haven't had any scenes with Marlena for help. I would think Marlena would be the person I would be going to for grief counseling, for friendship, for all of that. I haven't seen it in the scripts yet. I'm still deeply entwined with Chad's Billy Flynn storyline. How is Billy Flynn to work with? Susan, a pleasure. Billy Flynn has grown a lot as a human being and as an actor since I've known him. I'm really enjoying his company and really enjoying doing scenes with him. We rehearse, and then we get on other subjects and laugh and talk and inform each other. We're interested in a lot of the same things. He's a new parent. He's really devoting himself to that experience in the best possible way. So, I'm lucky. Do Julie and Chad try to figure out who set the fire? Susan. Oh yeah. I kept thinking about how Julie got burned in the kitchen fire years ago, and her face was scared. At the time, your mother Elizabeth Harrower was writing Dayways and wrote that for Julie. Did you hate that story? Susan. Well, I know where the story came from. It came up from something in Mother's own life. I knew the people involved, and I wasn't crazy in love with the idea. Then, when it was supposed to go for 6 weeks and went on for months and months, I was concerned. Mainly, I was concerned that my face was going to be affected because of the appliance, the scars that I was wearing. I was told by a dermatologist, "You're going to have a little beard after this. Ripping your face every single day to get this off is going to be hard on you." But I seem to have survived. Has the show even addressed with you how they plan to handle writing off the character of Doug Williams, and how they want to honor Bill? Susan. Only in the smallest way. I had a conference call with the producers and our head writer last Friday. I was informed about the immediate future. I've also been promised that they're going to keep me busy. It's a cast of over 40 people. I'll be happy to show up and to be included. I was just hoping that whatever they decide to do with the character of Doug, that they were going to run it by you first. Susan. They have, and they have been very sweet about it. I've got to tell you, this regime, they have a sign up on the wall now that says, "Things we expect on this stage." The first one at the top of the list is kindness. Have you watched your work back all these years? I know some actors never like to watch the scenes they taped. Susan. I think you learn by watching yourself, if you have an open mind, and if you are not hypercritical or dismissive. I cannot be dismissive of a character that has given me such a wonderful life. I'm still interested in Julie. Perhaps I wouldn't have been if I'd been on the show for 3 years and never returned to it. But I'm quite interested in her now, and what she has to offer as a member of this ensemble. Julie's ties to the whole history of Days of Our Lives from this point on are very important. How do you feel about that? Susan. There are those that don't care about the history of the show. I know that. I know there are those that only care about continuing with something snappy to keep eyes on the screen through action, adventure, drama, death, kidnapping, missed opportunities, all that, which I suppose that's what the audience craves. But that's not just what the show can do. What the show can do so well is character. There's a lot of people over 70 who are still on the show now. I'm the oldest one, but I'm not the only one. We're coming up on the 60th anniversary. I don't think the show is worn out, and if it is, it's had a remarkably successful 6 decades. Lamon Archie, Eli, is back on D&Y's for a stint. What has it been like to work with Lamon as his on-screen grandmother? Susan. I think he's terrific, and visually he is so beautiful, so appealing. I think both Ely and Lonnie, Southstowers, are very appealing as characters. I'm delighted to be connected to Ely as a family member. That was a lucky break for me. Do you think Days fans are going to continue to be emotional in the aftermath of this fire and all the story that comes out of it? Do you think we'll be touched by what Julie goes through to get the remains all cleaned up for a new house? Susan. I think anybody in America who's gone through a disaster and have unfortunately had the disruption of their home will be sympathetic and interested in how it all turns out. It's a nice note to play. We haven't had to do that very often. We just go from one lovely apartment to another without much discussion. I think this is the one set that meant a lot to people. I was very sorry to lose Julie's place, as it turned into kind of a sandwich shop. I still loved having a business, a tangible place to be, and an alternate place for people to meet. Upon reflection, what was your favorite scene with Bill? Was it when Julie and Doug got married on screen, or was it something else that was much more intimate? Susan. I think our last scene is going to be more important, emotionally. I think the first wedding was beautiful, but the material around the time of our second wedding, when Brenda Bennett, ex-Lee, came back on the show and Doug stood up to her and says, "I'm not going to be manipulated anymore," was also strong. There has been a lot of very important times when Doug was killed off by James Riley and we met in the tunnel of light. That was a day. That was a difficult day, which I certainly can't revisit right now emotionally. When Julie found out Doug had run off and married her mother, Addie, that was a day. It was a day because I went to the producer at the time, Jack Herzberg, and said, "Is this it? Am I not going to work with him anymore?" And he said, "Right, that's it. You're not working with Bill Hayes anymore." We were not married at the time, and I thought I was going to go through the floor. That wasn't a happy day. In terms of Bill's final day on the set with you, did you know that it was his last, and what would turn out to be his last scene? Susan. Well, they didn't know. But I knew. I had been allowed to rewrite it, so I can't tell you Bill's last line now, of course, but I will in time.